Hello, welcome to Pam Entertainment TV, where we're getting ready to do a series review of Dragon's Dogma, Season 1, Episode 2, entitled Gluttony. Just a quick review of our Season 1, Episode 1. That's where we got Ethan turning into the Arisen, and him being followed and protected by Pawn after his family had been killed by the dragon, and after the dragon had cursed him. So we start off this episode where we see Pawn walking through this like dark area to this I guess a ruined stone, a stone with all these different symbols and things like that. She touches the stone, and then she's immediately transported to the mountaintops around the village. She sees the dragon flying off, because the dragon has done all the destruction that he's going to do. So the dragon has flown off. She comes down and she finds Ethan wounded in the middle of the square, the town square. She takes Ethan inside. She heals his wound with her wound, because remember what I told you, that her hand had a similar mark on it as Ethan's chest. So she takes that hand and she heals him with that wound. He's still, beat up and broken and torn and everything like that. So it takes him a few days or a few weeks. They never did really show us the time lapse of how long he was out. He wakes up again and goes outside, and then how the last episode ended with Pawn saying, "I see you ready to join the land of the living, Arisen." So that scene plays out again. And then again, while Ethan is doing all of this talking, that old messy butt dragon, "Oh, you want me? You want to kill me? You want to do anything to me? Then you got to come to my lair." Just taunting Ethan. That dragon is an old taunting thing. So he's taunting Ethan to come find him. And so Ethan was like, "Okay, bet. We're going to go find this dragon and I'm going to kill him." Pawn says like, "Hey, I'm your protector. Wherever you go, I go." So they went back to the citadel, or the place, the military fort. And they got weapons and clothing and things of that nature. And they set off to go find the dragon. They stop to eat. And Pawn tells him, he offers Pawn some food. Ethan offers Pawn some food. And she says, well, she doesn't eat. They don't have to eat. It's not necessary for her to eat. And just a side note, how casual everyone is with this Pawn being. I mean, she seems like a supernatural being. Anyway, we'll get later down the road with that one. So Ethan asked her what her name was, and she said Pawns don't have a name. So Ethan then names her Hannah. So no longer are we going to start calling her Pawn. We're going to start calling her Hannah. Her name is Hannah. Ethan named her Hannah, and she accepted the name. So as they're eating and as they're getting their food and stuff like that, excuse me, they see this big old Cyclops that is walking. And Ethan sees the Cyclops, and he runs like towards the end of the mountain, because they're again, they're up on a mountain base. And he looks down and he sees this young lady that is tied to the rocks. He sees the Cyclops coming, and then he sees that the Cyclops is getting ready to eat this young lady. So Ethan springs into action. He fights with him and Pawn fight with the Cyclops, and they ended up getting the girl away from the Cyclops. They get the girl away. They take her back to the base camp that they had set up. The little girl is just ravenous. She's hungry. She's eating. And they ask her, like, "What are you doing? Why is that Cyclops trying to eat you? Where's your family? Do you have a family?" And she says, "Yes, I have a family." So Ethan and Pawn take this young lady back to her family. Her mother is just happy that she's there. Her sister and her brother are happy. Her father is very like standoffish, like, "Why is she here?" We find the little girl's name is Selah. He's saying that the Cyclops have been ravaging the village for a very long time. In order for the Cyclops not to destroy or take over the village, this is according to Salah's father, there has to be a sacrifice every 6 months. And every 6 months, one of the villager family is chosen to make a sacrifice to the Cyclops. And this young lady was made a sacrifice. So Ethan, and while he was explaining what was going on, these 3 men burst into the house and say, "Oh, I see that it was true that your child wasn't sacrificed to the Cyclops." And Ethan was explaining to them that no, we saved him. And then they didn't care. They said, "Well, since you didn't sacrifice your daughter to the Cyclops, we're gonna take your food. You've got to make the taxes are now levied against you. We're going to take your food." So, they didn't have but a bag full of food. And they took the food. And the little babies was like, "I'm hungry, Mommy. Why did they take our food?" So, again, Ethan, you remember I told you that they had he hunts for his food. He had hunted for some, I think he got a deer or a rabbit or some kind of animal. Anyway, he hid the food that he had to them. And so the mother made a stew with the leftover stuff that she had. The mother made a stew, and it was just enough. It wasn't a lot, but it was just enough. And the little girl was like, "I'm hungry." Excuse me. The little boy was saying that he was still hungry. So Ethan offered him his food. Well, the little girl said, "Well, I'm still hungry too. I'd like some," but the little boy wasn't going to share. And the father was like, "No, you don't need to eat anything." And so then the father looked at the little girl. She was like, "Well, I'm still hungry." So he offered his food. He told her, "Here, you can have this." And then we get to a flashback of Ethan and his father out on the water. Apparently they were fishing, and Ethan was drinking the water. And he had drunk so much of it, I think he didn't realize that he needed to offer his father some. And his father was like, no, you drink the water. But you can tell by the father's lips that he was very, very thirsty, because his lips were cracking. He really did need the water, but he wanted to make sure that Ethan had the water. After having dinner with the family, Ethan and Hannah go to see the mayor. So they go to the castle, and the 3 men that came to Salah's family's home were in the castle with the mayor, he looked more like a count or a royal, because he was in this big old huge castle. Excuse me. They're just sitting there with a table full of food. And when I tell you, they were eating just everything. They had all the townspeople had put the food in there. They were eating just healthy meals. They were eating healthy. It was only like 4 or 5 of them. And all of them were eating healthy. They had even offered Ethan some of the food. And so Ethan was like, "Well, I don't understand." And he was, "Why you all are eating good and your people are out here starving?" And they were saying, "Well, we're trying to make sure that they eat. We have to make a sacrifice to the Cyclops, and they have to offer one of their children. We know that it's a heavy sacrifice, but my people need to do this for the sake of the town." And Ethan was like, "Well, that doesn't seem right, that you would do that, and especially you'll sacrifice children." So then Pon was saying, "Well, I can kind of understand why." And then he says, "See, I like Pons because Pons understand what's going on." And then that made me think, wow, they're very comfortable with these supernatural beings. But after seeing the Cyclops, I can see why they were comfortable with these supernatural beings like Pon and whatnot, because this is the times that they lived in. They were, because I was looking at the first episode, and they were very awestruck that there was a dragon, but they were okay with everything else. So they live in this fantastical supernatural being time. So that's good. That's okay. So Ethan says that he's going to go kill the Cyclops. And the mayor is like, oh, you're going to kill the Cyclops? Good luck, you know. Hey, but he kept talking about, hey, you can come work with me. You can have all of this if you work with me. Blah, 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 blah. So Ethan and Hannah set off to go and try to kill the Cyclops. So Hannah asks Ethan, are you sure you want to do this? Are you sure that this is something that you want to do? And Ethan tells her, yes. This is what I want to do. This is I want that family deserves is a good family. They're poor, but they're a good family, and they don't need to lose a child to a Cyclops. This doesn't seem right. So as they go to set a trap for the Cyclops, all of a sudden you see a couple of men come in, and they're fighting Ethan, and then the Cyclops comes in. And so Hannah and Ethan are fighting the Cyclops, and they're fighting these men. The scene pans up to the mountain, and you see where the mayor and another one of his henchmen are standing there. So then Ethan and Hannah realize that the mayor is in control of the Cyclops. He has made either a deal with the Cyclops or whatever. And so he, you know how villains do. They go on to tell why they were doing what they were doing, and he was saying that the townspeople needed to make sure that they were under his control. And the way that he did that was he has the Cyclops come out and scare them to death, so their fear causes for them to levy all the taxes and the things that they need to because they want to stay alive. And so Ethan was like, why are you sacrificing children? And then the mayor was very flippant. He said, because the Cyclops thinks that adults' meat are too tough. Mayor, really? So these people are sacrificing their children unnecessarily, thinking that this Cyclops is actually wanting to kill them, but when the Cyclops is just technically under the control or worked out a deal with the mayor. So that enrages Ethan. And so he goes after the Cyclops, and then Hannah tells him, you can't go after the Cyclops unless this happens. And then some kind of way she takes an arrow or her hand. Remember I talked about earlier, her hand has some kind of magical powers. And she imbued his sword with this magical power for him to fight the Cyclops, because both of them agreed, I didn't say this earlier, that the only way that they were going to defeat this Cyclops if they take his eye out, because he only has one eye. So they do this. Once they kill the Cyclops, they start fighting the other men, and then like a couple of the henchmen were like the soldiers of the last episode, hey, you pay us good, but you ain't pay us enough that we're gonna offer our lives for you. So they take off running. So Hannah and Ethan subdue the mayor, and the mayor was like, are you gonna kill me? Please don't kill me. He's like, no, we're not going to kill you. We're gonna take you back to the village and let the village decide your fate. So they take the mayor back to the village, and the villagers, after hearing Ethan and Hannah explain to them what was going on, they went into a big old fit of rage. You know, because you've had people for the past, I think it was 3 to 5 years, every 6 months had been sacrificing their children to this Cyclops, and the mayor was in it. They strung that mayor up and basically skinned him and beat him alive. They killed the mayor. Then they went into the mayor's compound, the castle. Baby, they burnt that thing down to the ground. But one of the things that unnerved Ethan is that he thought that after their threat and their fear were gone, that there was going to be peace. But what happened was there was just chaos. Because number one, you've got grieving families who have lost children unnecessarily. You have hungry families who have been sacrificing their food to this mayor, this man, so that he can keep them safe. So you're dealing with grief. On top of that, you're dealing with anger, and you're dealing with people who have now been lowered into their basic basic selves. And so they're in the castle, they're getting the food, and then they're fighting each other for the food, and you see them, and it's like they just did stills. This series, they did stills of how you see like children sitting around eating an apple, just biting 3 apples at the same time they're eating. You have people fighting, a bag opens, you have people fighting, and they're just fighting, and then Ethan leaves, but he's horrified. And Hannah explains to him, you know, this is the human condition. You present them, you save them from one thing. You save humans from one thing. This is Hannah. You offer them a solution to get justice or to get thing, and then it turns, and now you have a whole town of people basically turning on each other. So that was the episode. It wasn't, in comparison to the first episode with the dragons and whatnot like that, it was the pace was slower, but we do see that Ethan, before he gets to the dragon's lair, he looks like he's going to be doing some quests. So as he gets to where he's going to go, he's going to be helping people out and doing different things. So he has different quests and things that he's going to do. So far, it's decent. I'm waiting for a couple more episodes to see what's going on. I think this series has about 6 episodes. 20 plus minutes. Not bad. An easy bingeable series on Netflix if you want to do that. But we're going to take it episode by episode. I'd give this episode out of 5 stars. I'd give it a 3. The first episode, I'll give it 4 out of 5 stars because I thought it was a good introduction to Ethan and who he was and why he was doing what he's doing. So right now we're looking at the fact that he's going to be on some quests. So I hope you like this review. If you do, please hit that thumbs up button, that like button, and also consider subscribing. This will help me get my numbers up so that I can get out here on this algorithm and you all can find me and hear some more of my reviews. All right, see you later. Bye.